Asgard is not a place.
Asgard's not a place, it's a people.
Asgard is not a place, it's a people.
Asgard, not Athens. Here we go again. Hello, Epicurean Stoic here, and welcome back to my channel. This is the second video in the series about narrative elements from popular culture that have their roots in ancient Greek theatre, poetry and history, and it's a good one. Asgard is not a place, it's a people. Watching the climax of Thor Ragnarok, you hear a variation of this phrase 3 times, and it's a very noble message that usually gets overshadowed by the comedy and overall ridiculousness of the film. It was a smart move both for this story and for the future of the MCU to turn the extravagant and arrogant Asgardians, the gods of the Nine Realms, into a group of refugees who have one single spaceship as their home, at least temporarily. But Thor Ragnarok was not the first time I encountered this message. This was the central idea behind the prelude to a battle that is, if you ask me, very underappreciated, the Battle of Salamis. After their valiant and heroic defeat in the famous Battle of Thermopylae, and their kind of miraculous survival at sea nearby during the Battle of Artemision, the Greeks retreated south. The army gathered at the Isthmus, outside Corinth, while the fleet gathered at Piraeus, the port of Athens. I don't know if you can notice, but this position doesn't exactly protect Athens from the descending Persians. And by doesn't exactly, I mean it doesn't at all. The rest of the Greeks had abandoned the Athenians, and instead chose to defend the Peloponnese. But the Athenians seemed to be prepared for this. They had realized that their city would most certainly fall, and that their only chance for salvation was relying on wooden walls. And by wooden walls, I mean ships, wooden ships. It's okay if you find it confusing. The Athenians did too. This was part of the response they got from the Oracle of Delphi, famous for her cryptic messages. So, ships, good. I mean, Athens had the largest navy in Greece, mainly because of this legend here, Themistocles. But what about the city itself? A sea battle cannot save the city of Athens if the Persians are coming from land. So what were the Athenians to do? Well, the absolute madmen chose to do the impossible. They willingly evacuated their city, moving women, children and the elderly to the island of Aegina and in Troy and in the Peloponnese, while any man of fighting age who was not rowing on the ships was stationed on the island of Salamis, just outside Athens. We shouldn't forget just how hard such a decision must have been to make. And interestingly, it wasn't some king of Athens that made that decision, like Thor does in the film. In fact, one could say that the Athenian democracy, the world's first democracy, was forged through this trial of fire. This new experimental form of government that would later be criticized for not taking action efficiently, quickly, or bravely enough, had already taken the most grave decision of all. And why? Because most of the people of Athens realized Athens is not a place, it's a people. They did save their people, and they even got lucky enough to be able to go back to their city and rebuild it into the glorious one we think of when we hear the name Athens. Now, it would be a pity if I didn't talk a bit about the fateful battle itself, which allowed their insane bet to pay off. So, the man of the hour, Themistocles, did everything he could to evacuate Athens. He probably even arranged for the sacred snake of Athena to be gone in order to convince people that they had to leave. After the whole evacuation and when the Persians were already in Athens, he was preparing for battle in the Straits of Salamis, where the agile Greek ships could stand a chance against the slower, bulkier ones that comprised the Persian fleet. But as if abandoning them by land wasn't enough, the other Greeks wanted to leave Salamis and go to the Isthmus too, and prepare for a sea battle there. Themistocles convinced them to stay for a little longer, but they were ready to leave in the next couple of days. Of course, Themistocles couldn't allow that to happen, and so he sent a messenger to the man who was in the process of burning his city, the Persian king Xerxes. He told him that the Greeks were not united at all, that if he attacked early the next morning, he would catch them unprepared. This was only half true though, as you may have expected from Themistocles, but he got what he wanted. Xerxes would rush to destroy the Greeks, entering the straits where the fight would favor the Greeks. But let's not kid ourselves. The balance of power was still very much towards the Persians. It was almost certain that the Greeks would lose. And so, the night before the battle, you can imagine the men of the Athenian contingent, roughly half of the whole Greek navy, sitting there and seeing the night sky lit up by the flames across the straits. Their city was being burned to the ground, their houses and farms razed, their temples and everything they held sacred was looted and then reduced to ashes. And yet, they persevered, because they knew that their fate, their people's fate, and the fate of all Greeks depended on it. So, early the next morning, before the mist had even cleared, was that also part of Themistocles' plan? I'd like to think so. Anyway, before the mist had even cleared, the Persians closed in on the straits. But instead of a divided bunch of cowards ready to flee, they saw something else. Well, actually, they didn't see something. They heard it. A loud cheer like a song of triumph from behind the mist, echoing among the nearby cliffs. The trumpet with its blast set all their sight afire, and instantly, at the word of a command, with the even stroke of foaming oars, the Greek fleet emerged, in formation and ready to fight to their deaths. And as if that wasn't epic enough, the Persians were met with a thundering paean, the most epic war chant of all. Forward, sons of Hellas! Free your motherland, free your children, your wives, the altars of your fathers' gods, your ancestors' tombs. Now is the fight for everything. Or, to make it sound more like the Nini Perpandon Agon of the Greek, now we fight for all. So yeah, this is the story about the Battle of Salamis and the heroic decision of the people of Athens to abandon their city in order to save it. Now you know where messages like Asgard is not a place, it's a people come from, and hopefully next time you'll hear one, you'll feel a glimpse of that salty sea breeze the Athenians had on their side as they were charging towards the invaders, avenging their sacked city, and protecting their people. Let me know if you have any other pop culture or ancient history topics that you'd want me to analyze, and if you like these videos I'm making, like them and subscribe to my channel, it helps a lot. I'm working on my first series of philosophy videos, which will be coming out every Tuesday starting next month, but you'll still get the next video of this series next Friday. So until then, have a great day, and remember to seek virtue.